Welcome to the Theatron Project. Episode 1, Introductions.
Hello and welcome to the Theatron Project. My name is Jared Lee.
And I'm Andrew Wardenar.
And we are the Theatron Project. You might be asking, who are we? And we wanted to give you a chance to find out a little bit about us.
I am a director. I am a dramaturg. I'm a playwright. I am an educator as well. I like to think of myself as a storyteller in lots of different ways. But yes, for the last couple of years, I have been running an organization called Orphic, which commissions contemporary writers to write adaptations of particular ancient Greek tragedies. We've been doing that for about 4 years now. So that's kind of what I've been up to, my work, taking old work, making it new.
Excellent. And I'm originally from Missouri, where I went to Missouri State, where I was invested in speech and theater education. While I was there, I had a chance of having my own theater for a little bit. It was a 200-seat black box, and we got to do quite a bit of fun experimental work. But eventually, I decided I was looking for new audiences. I was kind of curious about what else was out there and where could I find new audiences and new experiences. And that's what led me out to Portland, Oregon. From there, I was involved with several different companies, including starting another theater company called the Factory Theater, where we got a chance to produce a couple works. While I was out there that I was able to pursue a MFA in directing at University of Portland, where me and Andrew actually first met. Shortly thereafter that, I had an opportunity that led me all the way out to Detroit, Michigan, where I received a second MFA, this time in theater management, that allowed me to work a little bit more towards the administrative side of theater and, how does it work behind the scenes when you're not on stage. And all this led to questioning exactly what's the role of theater and what does theater look like and everyone who's involved in theater and what do we do from there. And that's actually what led me coming all the way back to Portland to pursue this new project with Andrew, which kind of leads us to...
This question that we kind of talked about, because I think it was right around the start of the COVID quarantine, we hopped together on a Zoom and we were talking a little bit about what that meant for theater. And I think we got it at the question of can theater exist in the digital form, accessible to lots of people? And
you're looking across the country and the theater industry more or less is decimated, and there's a lot of not knowing what's next. There's a lot of unpredictability currently in everywhere, but
yeah. And I mean, there's no end in sight. I mean, there's not really an end in sight at this point that we're recording this right now. We don't know what's going to happen with COVID for any business, except it does feel like, we're starting to reopen, we're starting to figure things out, but a crowd of people gathering together in an indoor space, closely pressed, that's not going to happen for a while.
Yeah, that's a tough sell.
So it was kind of a question that was on our minds anyway, but it's actually a question that's kind of been on my mind for a few years. Theater in a digital form, accessible beyond the building where it happens.
Usually if I'm talking to someone or I'm sitting thinking, I'm like, what does theater need to exist? And that's usually something to say, someone to say it to, and a place to say it. And it's this idea of, okay, well, what if you eliminate that place? What if it's theater without a space? Or rather, the space exists, but like you said, it's digital. It's all encompassing. It's all around us. What would that even look like? And so then that gets me thinking, okay, well, how do you do theater beyond the building, beyond the brick and mortar? And it's interesting, the things that you start thinking about where it was old and now is new, and the current state of the world kind of gives a revival to something. And I think that's what we've talked about in the past, is this revival of the radio play, and that the idea that theater existed over the airs, that happened. This isn't a new idea.
But it's funny because today, right now, we are completely entrenched in audio culture. We stream music on our phones. We listen to audiobooks. We follow podcasts like crazy. And so theater
Mhm.
can fit there. I think the radio play in quotes, can come back.
Right. It seems like now more than ever, this is the right time for theater to. Theater's not existing right now in its usual space, so it's time for it to explore a space it has been in before, but maybe not as full that it's been at for many decades at this point.
I should state before we sound like we think we're geniuses for
Right.
thinking of this idea first, that there are many fantastic theater podcasts out there that do readings of plays, presenting very successfully the audio format. But we're pretty hooked on that idea, and we're going to get in on it.
This digital space, this personal space, it can be individual and it can be experimental and immersive. It can be a lot of things that the confinements of a building can be a hindrance. And more importantly, the accessibility, having it digital gives equal access to everyone around the world to listen to it. You don't have to be in the city. You don't have to buy the ticket. You don't have to show up at the right time on the right day. It's on demand. And I think that's something that theater really needs. It needs to kind of shake that image that unfortunately it still has, that it's something you get to do maybe once, twice a year. And that's only if you're already somewhat familiar with it.
Yeah, and I think that it's really intimidating to go to the theater if you don't normally go to the theater, because it's not just a matter of money or knowing when things are happening. Like, you can find that out and you can buy a ticket, but the whole, like, there's almost kind of an unspoken ceremony to it all. And I
Mhm.
know that you and I love that sometimes. Like, that's great. I love being. I mean, hopefully it happens again
Yeah, there's a
sometime.
fun ritual to it to some degree, but yeah, it can be oppressive. It can
Yeah.
be intimidating, like you said. So hopefully, a digital audio form where you can listen to it in the comfort of your own home on your own time uh, can aid theater at large. I don't.
Yeah.
I hopefully we don't come off like we're saying we're better than the other. It was just I think they each feed into each other.
I think they do. I think that if you, I mean, I think there's a point with a play, or anything you're going to go out to do when you're going to go have an immersive arts experience, where you can get, yes, okay, great, I'm going to do this, and you're over the hump. But there's also this opportunity to be kind of like, I won't. No, I guess I don't. I won't feel like it. But whatever factor, or whatever thing it is that kind of takes you out of that, that triggers that. Well, if you could just pop it onto your headphones and listen to it, you might be like, well, I guess I will. And if you guess you will do that, you might find yourself, I guess I will, on a Friday night at some point in the future when the theaters reopen and we can go again. So I think you're right. It is feeding, one form is feeding the other.
I would say so. We're the Theatron Project. What does Theatron mean, and why that name, other than it sounding like some futuristic robot?
Well, it is. I think it is one of the Transformers.
I think
I
so.
think
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But beyond that, it's also a Greek word. I'm just going to fess up. I'm a big Greek nerd. I'm into the Greeks, 5th century Athens. I dig it. It's fun. A lot of cool stuff going on then.
It
And
sounds like you're trying to convince.
yeah,
I swear it's fine. It's good.
that was
I
cool.
promise.
No, I like it, man. It, it was a time. There was a lot of theater going on then. And there was also a lot of philosophy there getting born in that time. And actually, there's some interesting coming together of those things with with the concept of theatron. Because here we are in 5th century Athens. Athenians are creating and presenting their cultural myths as tragedies. And these tragedies would happen in a theatron, which was the Greek word for seeing place. But the word didn't just refer to the physical amphitheater, because when you're watching tragedy, big shit goes down. You've got fate, you've got death, you have catharsis, and you have to be in the right place for all that. And that was kind of what theatron was. It wasn't just, I will sit here now in this theatron and watch the play. It was like, I will get to place at Theatron. I will kind of commune with the audience around me and prepare for what we are about to experience collectively. So that's largely where the name, I mean, that is where the name Theatron Project comes from, because we're trying to create a digital platform that can exist outside of the physical space. It's not just the amphitheater, it's the mentality behind the amphitheater.
Some of these early conversations where we were, hashing out what exactly is this idea and talking about, that, theater can be larger than the building. And it's interesting. The word theater could mean the art as well as the building. Same with the Theatron. It's more than the space. It's this spot of scene, and like you talked about, this emotional, spiritual state. And here we are, as we're talking, dancing around this word Theatron without really saying it until all of a sudden we're like, well, hold up. The true definition, this old definition of Theatron, the actual way they intended it to be, has now kind of been skewed to where we usually, when we use that word, think of simply the amphitheater. Again, it's the old being new, or rethinking the new in old ways. And I don't know. I think the name is fitting for what we're trying to do, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think that idea that they have words that encompass multiple things, and that for them, the theatron, the theater, the physical place, was not something that you would distinguish from the mental space that you need to be in to watch it. That those would be the same thing. I think it's kind of amazing.
So hopefully, even in a digital form and all the different projects that we're going to be tackling, is that we can create that sense of an event. We can allow you to create your own scene place, invite you to experience something that without the building, that you get that same level of immersion and experience and joy out of it. So that being said, let's take a look at what our season 1 of the Theatron project. We got quite a few different offerings, because we understand that with a digital form, just like in a theater that produces a season, lots of different shows, lots of different things going on. Our first major project that we're working on, I think Andrew can speak to it a little bit further.
Yeah, well, I will say right now I am adapting a short story by Washington Irving called The Devil and Tom Walker. I'm going to go a little bit more into that and why that story and why that kind of why the theme, why the deal with the devil fascinates us so much as a culture a little bit later. But that's kind of what my focus is going to be for this season.
Definitely a lot in there to mine. It'll be fun as you get to listen along as we dive into what exactly goes into the creation of the adaptation, from thoughts and research to words on paper to being in the room with actors and interviews. So it should be a pretty interesting journey, to say the least.
Yeah, and I mean, my hope is that when we're done with it, by the end, you'll really have a sense of where it came from and where it is now. And you might be thinking at the end of that, where could it go next?
In addition to our adaptation project, we're also using this chance of digital theater to explore some stuff that might have been hidden in the annals of time. And that is going to be a program called Refresh or Reshelf. And this is where we're going to get actors around a table, dive into a lesser known piece of work, perform it as written, and then we'll open the floor to the actors as well as feedback from yourselves, whether or not it deserves being revived. Should it be explored further? Should potentially a new adaptation or an update be done? Or honestly, was it just better off back on the shelf and we move on?
We want you to bear witness to the process. We want to pose those questions. Is this worth doing? What's the issue? How do we solve that issue? What are the difficult questions that it poses? What do you think about that stuff? I mean, part of the reason we're doing that is because we want to give you sort of a behind the scenes idea, but we also want to hear what you think.
In addition to that, we're also going to create a platform called the Theatron Presents. This is kind of our interesting catch-all performance area. It's kind of a grab bag catch-all situation. It's weird because it's like the miscellaneous category of our programming, but whatever. And then finally, our last bit of performance is a chance where we kind of get to let our hair down and relax a little and have just a little bit of fun. This is our program called Cold and Drunk. And the concept behind it is we're going to get a bunch of actors together in a room. They're going to have one or two drinks, to say the least, and we're going to throw a script at them and kind of see what happens. We're going to explore some golden era radio plays, as well as some short stories, some short one acts. And keep in mind that whenever you're hearing these actors perform it, this is the first time that they've ever seen this text. And so we're going to stumble through it all together. There'll be some interactive elements, so we hope that you'll join us, grab a drink, sit down with the actors who are also having a drink, and enjoy ourselves, have a few laughs.
I am looking forward to the laughing and the drinking, and the good theater and the good dramatic stuff too. There's a lot of good stuff there.
What's the larger picture, the larger purpose of us, of outside of the first season, the larger idea of what we're trying to get at with this Theatron project?
We came to this project, this idea, with a question. How can theater exist in a digital space? How can the seeing place be something that happens digitally? And what we are trying to do with this project to explore, can we do it? How can we do it? How can we make that exciting? How can we create that level of engagement that you would get if you were sitting in the first row on opening night?
Idea of what a podcast allows theater to do that it kind of has had trouble doing when it's been in a stationary space. And that is this building this level of engagement and this level of community. I think it's really interesting what a podcast allows performers and storytellers an opportunity to directly reach out to a community and get feedback and conversations with those. uh, in traditional theater, typically we'll do a talk back following a performance, whereas in this format, you don't have to wait for the mic. If you feel a need or you feel like you want to chime in, then that's what you use social media for. You can use our message board. You can tweet at us directly, and we can get instantaneous feedback, and you add to this conversation.
Approaching it this way instead of a talk back gives us that opportunity to kind of sit with a piece for a while before we respond. And I know I always value that.
And this goes even further than just the audience, but also the actors. We get to build a community of actors where, as an actor, you get an opportunity to work with many different actors across the country, across the world. With technology, we can have you in the room with other actors all at the same time. You now get to work with new actors, new ideas, new perspectives that you normally wouldn't have had the opportunity, or if you did, it was a rare opportunity.
One of the things that I think is kind of neat about what we're doing, especially with these pieces that we're adapting, that we're changing, kind of uh, as we're as you're listening to them, is there's an opportunity for you to kind of participate in the table work. You can hear the way that we're approaching a scene. We can hear your feedback on that part of the process, and that might make it into the eventual play. Your voice matters here. It doesn't mean that it doesn't matter when you go to a talk back after a show in a theater, but it matters in a different way. And we want to foster that community, and we want to foster that sense of feedback and conversation between audience and artist.
I think one of the last things I'm definitely looking forward to, and that is the idea of what does an immersive podcast sound and feel like? How does that get created? Where we start to get like a weird mix of immersion, scavenger hunt slash tour guidey kind of vibe to where it is you're having an experience on your own, you're listening, but maybe in order to continue the story along, it's asking something of you. So as a listener, you either need to physically go somewhere in order for the story to continue, or you need to do something in your home in order for the next thing to continue. We're not for sure exactly where this goes, but it's an interesting question to explore this idea of transitioning from an audience member into a participant, into potentially eventually a performer. And what technology and this format allows us to play around with what these roles are, I think is a really interesting question and something that in the future we hope to explore.
Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time, checking out what we're doing. And I hope we'll see you back here really soon.
And we hope that you'll explore along the way with us. We will be releasing new episodes every Monday starting August 3rd, and we hope that you'll listen and enjoy with the variety and the in-depth conversation and follow along with us. Oh.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe take the no out.
Maybe
I just,
yeah, keep that part.
oh yeah.